for the state of the industry. Third, you have, of course, the workers and their representatives, particularly through GAWU and NASI. And of course, you have civil society, you have other agencies which are concerned with providing services to the sugar workers. As far as the plan is concerned, there needs to be a lot more work by the fourth agency, which I can call, or the third agency, which I can call the Special Purpose Unit, which comes under the Ministry of Finance. And that is the agency that will be responsible for ensuring the smooth transition for those parts of the industry which will not be remaining in production under the Guyana Sugar Corporation. So I would say that the work of the SPU is still being done. They are in negotiation not only with the Sugar Corporation, but also with foreign investors. And I expect that before too long we will have a plan which will explain in greater detail how the land will be disposed of. But as far as the retrenchment benefits or the termination benefits are concerned, the government is responsible for ensuring that the Sugar Corporation fulfills its obligation to the workers. Big election was an ideal or fault.
Not discussing that, but a section of the population see Mr. Burnham as being synonymous with that period of perceived or real rigged elections.
I've never rigged an election in my life. I have no intention of ever doing so. Whenever I spoke of Mr. Burnham, I spoke of the ideas which he implanted in the party that he founded, the People's National Congress. I spoke about his commitment to education, the construction of the various multilateral schools, Anna Regina, Amsterdam, the Leyden Hall and elsewhere. I speak of infrastructure, the Demerara Bridge, the Kanji Bridge, the international airport. I speak about housing. I think he's made a contribution, and I have no compunction about admitting that those are ideals which have served the nation well. If you knew what Guyana was like in 1964, you realized that by 1974, we had made tremendous strides. And I've always referred to those achievements. But as far as rigging of elections, I don't see how that is applicable to anything that I have said or intend to do. As far as the jobs are concerned, I cannot give you a number. Perhaps the Minister of Business can give you a number, but as I said, from what I've seen in these 6 regional exhibitions that I've visited, many of the persons leaving school, many of the persons who've gone into SLED, what I've seen at the youth empowerment scheme at Kurukuru, there is a lot of unregistered employment, particularly by young people and by women in households. I've mentioned several of the schemes. I cannot give you a number, no, but many of them, for example, you go into Rukunan and you see housewives using old vodka bottles or rum bottles to sell their molasses or to sell their honey. There's a great stirring of cottage industry, and I can't give you a number, no. I mean, God couldn't compromise. God couldn't confirm that people would be compromised by adultery. He gave 10 commandments, you know, and people are still compromised after thousands of years. How can I do that? How can I will do everything possible under the law to protect, to ensure the integrity of the government and the corporations. And if any malfeasance is reported to me, I will take action to have it investigated, and if there are culprits, the culprits will be subjected to the process of law. But yes, I will do everything possible to ensure the integrity of this industry. It's the first big new industry we've had for a century. And we don't want to drop the ball. We want to make sure that our children benefit from what is going to take place. We've been very cautious, and we have, luckily, we have time to ensure that not only legislation, but also education that is necessary and the organization at the governmental level, all of these are put in place.
Regards to the appointment of a substantive Chief Justice and Chancellor, Could you say if you've made contact with your proposed nominee, and when you plan to meet with the opposition leader on the issue? And my follow-up question is, the president of the CCJ, Sir Dennis Byron, as well as some legal minds, have expressed some concerns about a significant gap in making these appointments, these substantive appointments. Could you say whether or not you will now make an effort to have this corrected?
Yeah, this is a matter of deep concern to me. When I was in the opposition, I did meet with the then President, Mr. Ramachara. We could not agree on the nomination, so I proposed a formula, that is, that we would advertise, especially in the Anglophone Caribbean. He did not accept that recommendation, but when I got into office, I implemented it, and a panel of eminent jurists did interview some persons who were interested in the appointments of Chancellor and Chief Justice. The nominations were made, and contact, to answer your question specifically, contact has been made with the person who's been nominated, and that person has accepted. We're now looking at the modalities for his termination of the work that he's doing now in the country of residence. And I'm aware of the concerns of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and I am working to have this matter resolved as early as possible. Once the person is in the country, I am prepared to meet with the leader of the opposition as required by the Constitution to conclude what the Constitution calls meaningful consultation. Yes. As far as the concerns that were raised with me, I did receive a letter pointing out that deserving persons were being superseded. One letter writer claimed that there had been no internal procedure for the nomination of officers. It is the convention that the commissioner would convene a committee of the most senior officers to nominate persons. This had not been done, and there was a danger that persons who were not qualified would be recommended for supersession, and persons who were qualified would end up being left behind. In addition to that, there were some other allegations which I feel were justified, in that the actual selection process at the Commission had been compromised. So taken as a whole, I felt that the integrity of the process was compromised, and that it would not be in the public interest to proceed with those nominations. And that is why it was requested that the recommendation be frozen. As far as the new commission is concerned, I had hoped that by now it would have been in place, but I expect that I would not like to go into 2018 without that commission being in place. As far as the process is concerned, we are hopeful that the current Secretary General would do what the previous Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, had committed to do. That is, if there was no satisfactory progress between the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, by the end of this year, the matter will be referred to the International Court. We hope that the current Secretary General would fulfill that requirement, which was laid down by Ban Ki-moon. But hope is not a good planning strategy. We are working on it. As far as the negotiations are concerned, the Foreign Minister remains engaged with the personal representative of the Secretary General, Mr. W. Lander, and with the Secretary General himself. I've met the Secretary General, and if necessary, I'll go and meet him again, because this monkey's been on our back for 51 years, and we hope to go into the new year with a very clear idea that the matter could be resolved under the law. As far as we're concerned, Guyana has every legal right. In 1899, there's nothing, the Venezuelans have not been able to advance any evidence to show that the tribunal award was void. Quite recently, you'll see that members of the Guyana Defense Force publicized a photograph of one of the boundary markers. So we are confident that we are on good ground. As far as the leakages are concerned, it's not an ordinary case of plumbing. We would like to find out who's leaking and bring an end to the leakage, but we just don't know. If we knew, we would stop it. Well, I do not accept it was illegal. I would not knowingly do something which is unlawful. As I pointed out, the absence of disclosure does not necessarily mean the presence of the deceit. I think it was explained by the Foreign Minister and myself that there was very good reason. It has not been proven that there's a crime. It was a course of action that was recommended, and we feel that where the money is located at present would be isolated or insulated from being misused or stolen. So I don't believe there's any illegality. I don't think there's any graft or corruption or any intention to misuse that money. As I said, it was put there for a reason, and if we are advised by the lawyers that it does not conform with the regulations, financial regulations, we will comply with the ruling of any court, or we will comply with legal advice. But at present, the money is safe. It belongs to the Guyanese people, and it was intended to be used for a specific purpose, and that purpose has not been fulfilled, been met as yet, and we need it there, and that's why we put it there. But the money is safe. I have every confidence in the chairman of the commission, and many unsubstantiated claims and allegations have been made. As you know, it is a unique commission in which the government nominates 3 commissioners, and the opposition, after process, nominates 3 commissioners, and there's a process for the nomination of the chairman. So as far as I'm concerned, the commission is properly constituted, and I will obviously make sure that nothing is done to have any improperly conducted elections. It is necessary because I expect that the local government elections are less than a year away. So we could not wait any longer to make the appointments. And the way the commission is structured, you have vigilance on both sides, both on the government side and both on the opposition side. So I'm confident. I don't have to restore confidence. The confidence is there. And I would urge Guyanese to support the work of the commission. As far as eavesdropping is concerned, well, the matter hasn't come back to the cabinet. I don't know what aspect you're concerned about of the eavesdropping bill.
But just you opposed it yourself, Excellency, and now it's still there. It hasn't been rescinded.
Opposition is a matter of dates. It's very hard to speak to people who can't cope with that level of vulgarity. If you want to speak to me, there's a way, a civilized culture way to do it. And it's very hard to speak to people who will be doing like that. So, yes, I'm committed to inclusionary democracy. A recommendation was made, and I think the response of the leader of the opposition to the recommendation is well documented. So I don't need to go back there. A recommendation was made to set up a bipartisan committee to explore avenues of inclusion, and cold water was thrown on it. And you can see what happened earlier this week. I don't hear the drums that you've been hearing. I perhaps march a different drum beat. But as far as I'm concerned, people are free to make allegations, and when those allegations are made, they'll be investigated. But people must need to bring evidence. People must bring evidence to the government. Sometimes people make allegations which are untrue or which are malicious. And we have to be very careful. Sometimes they post information which is not subject to the scrutiny of some of the experienced editors that we have here. You know, and when they publish false or fake news, they don't retract the news when they find the news is wrong. They may accuse somebody of building a mansion in 2 years when in fact it's a little old house that was there for 25 years, but they don't retract it. They don't say, well, I made a mistake. So you have to be careful with fake news and the drum beats, you know. Sometimes it's not really a drum beat, it's just some noisy person disturbing the neighborhood. We have appointed a petroleum advisor. We are seeking the best advice. We are moving to create to establish a legislative and regulatory framework and establish the institutions which will be responsible for administering such an important sector of the economy. No, I cannot say at this point in time what all of those micro measures are, but we've gotten help from the Commonwealth, we've gotten help from other international organizations, and we are putting this together. The Cabinet has not received a single comprehensive presentation, but this is going to be done hopefully within the first half of next year. So I cannot answer all those questions, but certainly we are aware of the problems which have occurred in other countries. I myself lived for 1 year in one of the countries which might have been afflicted or affected by these problems, and they are well known. And sometimes the agriculture suffers, sometimes there's corruption, sometimes the environment is damaged. So this is well known, and you can rest assured that this is the type of advice we're getting and the presentations we've made to the Cabinet. We've asked also that, in fact, we've decided that presentations be made jointly to the opposition and government so that they are aware of what is taking place. So it's not unilateral. We regard the petroleum industry as a national asset, and we will do everything to make sure that it is administered in a transparent way, and that we provide the regulatory framework for all, not only ExxonMobil, for all companies coming into there. There are other companies out there, and we want to make sure that there's a level playing field, but at the same time that they respect our municipal laws.